Good morning, everybody. And welcome to our agenda review on Friday, what is it, the 5th today? Yeah, Friday the 3rd. Sorry about that. Okay. Tom, or Mr. Manager, take it away.
Good morning, Chairman and Commission. This is for the meeting for November 8th, and Scott Wagel's coming. He's got a couple items on, but he should be here by the time we get to them. Nicole, county announcements.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So for county announcements, I will talk about the Veterans Day closure, which is next Friday, November 10th. Sedgwick County offices will be closed, but 911 services will still be available. The other thing is I do have some good news coming from facilities, so I'm excited to share that with you. I also wanted to take half a second to remind everyone that daylight savings time is Sunday. We're all going to fall back. And then reminder too that elections is happening now. Satellite campuses are open, and then election day is Tuesday. And that's all I have.
We have one proclamation for National Apprenticeship Week, and then we get into new business, and we have several items on new business. Items B and C are road project financing components, and I don't know if the commission has any questions of either Lindsay or Lynn on these two items. Item B is Lindsay's quarterly update on the American Rescue Plan financing. I think all of you have been briefed on that previously, and we'll cover that in public on Wednesday. Item E, we may pull. We just, for the viewing public, we just finished a meeting, a roundtable discussion with some legislators and city and county officials, and a city official said in the meeting that they were going to pay for this shelter with ARPA. So I need to go back. I need to circle back with the city manager and ask what the ask is for the county. I was going to cover that here, so that may go away, but I will confirm that with city manager. Item F is Sheena's annual approval of holidays for the upcoming 2024 fiscal year. And then item G is Board of Bids and Contracts. Any questions on new business items?
Questions?
On consent, and Scott's here. The first item H and I are a zoning change and a vacation request. Scott is here if there's any questions, and I don't know if he has briefed you on these. If we have questions, Scott can come to the podium and answer questions here.
Sorry, they're in your district. Yeah. All right. With us. Okay.
You're off the hook, Scott.
Sorry about that.
All right. Item J is the 2024 agreement between city and county on the operation and maintenance of the flood control system, and can answer questions if there's any there. Item K, it's my understanding you've been briefed on already. That is consideration of a grant of $278,840 for community corrections. Briefed on that, but Steve is available if there's questions. Item L and item L, I think Annette sent you all an email on regarding a KDAD's amendment. Okay. Item M is just an agreement between legal services agreement between the with the Board of Indigent Defense Services. Item N is an ICAC subrecipient extension with City of Wichita. O, I believe, is the JAG recipient agreement. Justin, anything on that?
I don't know.
Okay. Item P, I want to spend just a bit of time on. That was a letter that I sent you all within the last week. We put it on consent for the chairman to sign. I didn't know if and I hadn't had a chance to circle back with you all yet. If it's okay to leave this on consent, or if we want to discuss that or potentially pull it.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We actually discussed this during the Transportation Coalition meeting as we were preparing for local consults. And this is an item that we added as an other priority for the local consult, that it is a priority for the Transportation Coalition, but it doesn't really fit into our prioritizations. So we added it as another item because it makes sense to have a route across the southern portion of Kansas from border to border. So that's what this is all about, and I support it.
Say as a consent item on item P then. Thank you.
Okay, now I think, did we redo that letter a little bit? Okay, need to look at it.
And Nicole will get you, is that part of the backup material? It would, should be in the, what's in current backup material ought to be the accurate letter. And if there's changes, let us know between now and Wednesday.
Okay.
Item Q, I think you also got a note on, it's a donation, to ComCare. There are a series of policies that, we need approved. That's item R, and I think it's in backup material. There are several, that Sheena needs approved to move forward. Item S is the removal of a hold on one position from ComCare staffing, and that Tim can address that. But I think it's just more, I see these as good news to where we're actually getting some hiring done and Joan's able to fill staffing. So if there's questions on that, I'm sure Joan or Tim can articulate. T is I think Lauren had sent you all a note on this. Is a transfer of budget authority to the 18th Judicial District to pay for indigent defense services fees. And then the rest of this is routine. There is a fire agenda also. And we do have executive session also.
Okay, we do. Tom, yesterday leaving, ran into Brandy, county treasurer. Is there any urgent thing that we need to be working on with supporting her?
Tom, there is something that will be on bid board next week and come to you on the 15th related to the tax system. And so they are letting you know, they'll be briefing you all between now and Monday on what that is. It's already prepared to go to bid board, and then it'll come on for commission consideration
So it goes to bid board first.
Yes.
And then,
But they had a meeting with us yesterday about some of the urgency there and how we can move forward.
Commissioner Dennis.
Thank you. It really doesn't have to do with our meeting, but because we have all the commissioners here, and it's the only way that I can speak to all of them is in an open meeting. Today, there was an article in the newspaper about the 18th Judicial District, actually the entire state of Kansas, with the exception of one county, is down. And the newspaper indicated that it could be a year before it came back up. I think all the commissioners received an email from an attorney recently that sent it to the Board of County Commissioners. And I sent back and said, I didn't think we could solve this because 18th Judicial District doesn't work for us, but it does impact us, and we do fund that organization. So, and in addition, Tyler Technologies also provides a lot of software for the county, from what I understand. So we need to delve into, is there some impact to the county, some of our software that might be vulnerable to the same thing that Odyssey is vulnerable to. So we need a little bit of update on that. And also, I know that I'm pretty sure I forwarded to Justin the letter from the attorney Rathburn that was concerned about the 18th Judicial District, and see if there's anything that the county is responsible for. I don't believe so, but he seemed to indicate there was. So I want to make sure that we keep straight on that. The second thing is that several months ago, several of us had a dinner with Tony Mativi, the head of the FBI. And we asked him to include funding for our Forensic Science Center in his budget. Now, he's preparing his budget right now because he sends it before the legislature come January. So I don't know if we followed up with Tony Mativi, or if we're working on that, or if we need to add it to our legislative agenda. But a lot of the work that we do in forensic science is really, we're doing it because that's the only way we'll get turnaround in any timely time whatsoever. It's really the state's responsibility to take care of all this, and yet they're not funding us. So I want to make sure that we're following up to make sure that's included in their budget, or if we have to include it in our legislative agenda to get additional funding out of the state for the Forensic Science Center. So thanks. Sorry, it has nothing to do with our agenda for next week, but I can't talk to everybody else. Thanks.
Okay. Just circling back on the Aumentum issue, as Lindsay discussed, Chairman, this is we've discussed this system for several years now. And I think when you get your 221, we're going to have to look at this as a long haul and a phasing approach. So we will get you briefed, and then we will circle back individually as we go through the various phases on this with what we need to get done there.
Chairman, if I could go back to new business E. Tom, I would just suggest maybe when you're talking to the city, I think we need to ask them specifically where our cooperation is best served. I'm going to remind you that if they're going to fund the emergency winter shelter themselves, and that's fine. However, there's no interim plan in place for after March. So if our resources or connections or whatever it may be, if they're best applied towards what happens after March, I think we need to get some clarity in that. If it's best applied towards a winter shelter emergency situation, I think that they need to tell us that. But I would caution us that we might need a little horsepower after March. And we need to make sure that we're understanding exactly what the need is and how we can best come to the table in partnership. We're asking the state to come to the table in partnership. And we need to also be at the table as well, but it may be better applied after March. I think we need clarity with that. It may not be for the emergency winter shelter at this point. It may be in the interim plan, which in my opinion is equally important. So,
Okay, sir. I agree.
May I, Chairman? Yeah. So again, I hinted to on this during the previous meeting. I think that I'd like to share just a few more details. Again, I met with one of the state representatives yesterday for an hour and a half, and we tried to, again, spitball what would we ask the state of Kansas regarding capital, and I think that the caveats that made it something that he thought would be more successful would be if we were to ask the state to develop, if you will, a grant program that would be available to any community that requested these types of funds. It should be some local match. Otherwise, it's not just money given out with no local responsibility, but there would be a local match of some sort, maybe a 60-40 split or some other ratio. I don't know. The entire program should be capped at some level. And again, I don't know what the right number would be. It kind of depends on how expensive each one of these facilities would cost. But just for purposes of a discussion, I throw out the idea just to say that the state put in $30 million and there was a 60-40 split between the state would provide 60 and local would provide 40. And they come with the caveat that that the local government would own and maintain the facility, but we would use private sector operators to operate the facility. And we'd have yearly reporting to the state on basically economic impact of how this is saving taxpayer money. To me, as a way to kind of move this idea forward. The entire program would be capped at some level, let's say $30 million, and then each grant would be capped at, say, at $6 million. And so that in that example, I mean, to be a $10 million facility, that would be capital to get this ball rolling. And again, I don't know that that's the right numbers. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I should double everything, or I don't know. But just for the purposes of discussion, that's just an example on how the structure could look. And if we can agree on something like that, I talked to a number of legislators this morning about that idea, and everyone I've spoke with, they were like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. If you can get that structured up, that makes sense. Again, numbers may be completely wrong, but if you provide the structure of what we're asking for, what we envision might be a program, and you get that to the governor's office pretty quickly, she potentially would be willing to include that in her base budget to the legislature. Again, she probably can't tell us that for sure, but again, if you don't ask, you'll never get anything. You have to ask, and I think that it's a fairly compelling problem, considering the tragedy of the little girl that was murdered in Topeka. I think that right now everyone's focusing on the fact that should not have happened. There weren't things in place, and so we have an opportunity right now to have that conversation. As long as the governor's leading on this, I think she would enjoy being viewed as someone that's leading on this. And again, we asked her to consider the idea, but it would simply be that she would put that in her budget. It's really hard to take things out of the budget, especially that are like the things like this. It's hard to take things out of the budget, especially when they have a $3 billion surplus. But it's even more difficult to add it to the budget. So if you ask the legislators, if it's not included in the base budget, and we have to write a bill that would be considered an appropriation bill that would be added to the budget, that's I'm going to tell you, I think it's nearly impossible. It's just going to delay everything for a year. So if our strategy is to work with the governor's office, I think what we need to do locally is to develop what we think the structure needs to be. I may be completely wrong, but Henry Helgerson does agree that the strategy would be if we can articulate that in some kind of detail, what we think is a reasonable program that we can live with. Mm-hmm. And again, the city needs to probably have a conversation with our manager as well to say, what do we think the structure should be? If we can kind of develop that in some unofficial way, but we maybe get consensus at our next staff meeting or at a future BOCC meeting where we can talk about this in a public open setting to define what we think is a good program. We can get that to the governor's office, and hopefully we have a small window of opportunity where she might respond and actually include that because she believes it's a good idea. But if we don't get that to her quickly, we'll not have a chance for a whole another year. Only a chance after that would be during the session. So I do appreciate the wisdom of a very seasoned and respected state representative that can guide us on how to be successful. He is a very smart person. I appreciate his wisdom on this, but to his point, if we have very little time. Mm-hmm. I talked to the MAC, some people here this morning that were here representing the MAC team to figure out what that needs to be. And I don't think that they're thinking about a short timeline like that to develop some structure. So they're thinking much more, several months of time to kind of figure out what they think is good. We don't have that. We don't have that luxury of time. So if we want to do something, approach the state, we really have maybe a week or two to get that together and then approach the governor's office with that idea. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. We go to fire agenda.
There is a fire agenda. I think it's just a big board item. It's going to be the personnel policy that we discuss under main agenda, extrapolating over to fire.
Okay. And with the consent item.
That's the policy, sir.
Okay. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. That's it. Anything else from anybody? I don't see any other departments here, so you all are good. All right. Happy Friday. Have a safe weekend.